So let's dive right into this Funnelytics Performance interactive tutorial. Now, in this interactive tutorial, I'm going to walk you through the ins and outs of Funnelytics Performance, and I want you to follow along and do what I do so that you can really get a sense of what you can do inside of Funnelytics and use Funnelytics for your own business. Now, in this very first video, we want to talk about the basics of Funnelytics Performance because the truth is, growth comes from understanding the customer journeys. If you understand how people come to your website, if you understand the different pages that they navigate and the different actions that they take, you can get insights that help you optimize and drive growth. Now, before we dive into the nuances, I want to just point out a couple of things in terms of the navigation for Funnelytics Performance. So on the right-hand side right here, you have access to your layers. This is where you can turn on and off your numbers. For example, you can turn on flow mode when things are connected together. You can also turn on a couple of the planning and mapping features. At the very top right here, you have access to your date selector, so you can choose the date range that you want. You have access to funnel mode versus traffic mode. So this is basically changing the type of data you're seeing. You have your filters, you have comparison, and you can refresh your data. Throughout this interactive demo, we will walk through all of these different tools and all these different features. So we're just going to put them aside for now. On this side, we have access to all of the mapping tools. If you want to learn more about mapping, you can go through the mapping tutorial instead. However, I do want to point out the select and pan tool right here so that if you can't see some of this stuff on the canvas as you're following along, you can always hold spacebar and move around the canvas like this, or you could just switch it to the pan right here. You also have access to zoom in, zoom out over here so that you can get a better view of the actual canvas. Now, on the left-hand side, there are some tools that we will go over in future demos, but let's dive right into the fundamentals of Funnelytics Performance. Like I said, growth comes from understanding the customer journey, and you need to understand that there are three core things that happen across your customer journey. People come to your site from a source: Facebook ads, emails, Google ads, direct, search, banners, Bing, etc. Then they visit different pages across your site: your homepage, landing pages, blogs, your calendar booking page, order forms, all of these different pages that they can visit across your site. And on those pages, they do specific actions. Now, there are specific actions that change the status of this person from a random visitor to a lead to a prospect to then being a customer. And that happens when they submit a form, they schedule a meeting, or they make a purchase. But there are also some actions that occur on your site that don't change the status of that person, but actually show that they're engaging with your content. So for example, they're clicking the add to cart button, they're watching a video, they're clicking any sort of button or link on your page, they're scrolling up and down your page. And in Funnelytics, we can track all of this automatically. Now, at some stage, the journey transitions to offline. For example, a deal won, a Google meeting, a phone call, stuff that doesn't actually occur on your website, but is still part of the customer journey. Now, the reason this is super important is because fundamentally, Funnelytics Performance looks at the entire customer journey by looking at an actual person's profile. So for example, right here, I have an example of a profile, and you could go ahead and click on any of these. You will see the profile, but you can see the timeline of everything that this person has done. So in this case, this person has done 4 core events. And with the Funnelytics canvas, all we're really doing is helping you surface this data so that you better understand how these different touch points in the customer journey correlate to each other. So for example, let's say I want to see how Facebook ads correlate to somebody going to my homepage as an example, and then eventually going and actually submitting a form like this. So I can connect these together like this by just dragging and dropping. And then when I actually turn on my data, I can see the actual numbers right here. So if I refresh my analytics, I will see the actual conversion rate from each of these particular steps. Now, in the next tutorial, we're going to dive into not only how do you set up tracking for all of these different icons and touch points across the customer journey, but how do you actually read the data and better understand and get insights from all of this information. See you in the next tutorial.